Okay, all you fans out there of the beautiful Alan, but I know particularly there's two out there who are just dying to see her. Well, I'd love to see her in person, my dear, and maybe that's going to happen, but video's the best we can do without that. I know you talk to them all the time, but so say hello to Papa Ted and Mama Gina.
Hello, Dad and Mom. How you doing? Happy New Year. I hope you had a wonderful year, and I'm pretty sure you did. It has been a wonderful year for us. And I just can't wait to see you this year. I hope it's just like when you texted me the message and you said,
Well, let me interrupt here. So we've just gone through the story of the idea that maybe Alan could come after she finishes her schooling. No, the United States is very, very tough on getting a visa to come after you've completed schooling, but there is some space for people to come over on an internship, an unpaid internship, by the way, because it's illegal to come over and actually work for money unless you get a very different kind of visa. But a student visa, maybe that's possible. And I can tell you this, with Papa Ted and Mama Gina trying to figure out how to do it, it's probably going to happen. Or let's just put it this way. If it can happen, they're going to make it happen. All right? So they're very, very excited about the opportunity. And I will just inject that a totally different kind of situation, but we did successfully get our visas to go to South Africa. So Kenny and Dina and Joy just got back last night from South Africa. So sometimes miracles with visas do occur. So tell us about your last year. I mean, I know Papa Ted and Mama Gina know, but tell everybody else what you've been learning in school.
I've been learning more about civil engineering, and it has been more about the construction part. But then much of the water, because we did so many units in water, we did hydraulics.
Oh, okay.
And hydrology.
Okay.
Shows how water moves in channels and how water moves in water bodies and all the spheres of the world. And then we did much of the geology. That was quite hard.
Well, let's talk about water for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Mom and Papa Scott and Cassandra have done some traveling in the last couple of years.
Yes.
And one of them was 3 years ago, to China. And there's a river called the Yangtze River in China.
Okay.
And there's a big mountain range behind China called the Himalayas.
Mm-hmm.
And every spring, all of the snow would melt and all the water would come down all at once. And the Yangtze River, believe it or not, would rise 40 feet. And so in what used to be called Chongqing, they have to have a waterfront that can be as low or as high as a span of a 40-foot difference. That's astonishing.
I know.
And it used to flood a third of China, and it destroyed much of the agriculture and so forth. So they had to figure out what are they going to do with all that water. So they were very ingenious. They built a whole series of canals to divert the water up not at the source, but at a high point. So these are canals that are empty 3/4 of the year, but 1/4 of the year it's absorbing all that extra water to manage this gigantic flow, which happened every year. So I don't know if that was one of your study projects, but it would be an interesting one to study, how Chinese how they mastered the huge problems from the Yangtze River. But then another one we went to is we were on the Nile River, which starts here in Uganda.
Yes.
And flows 4,000 miles to the Mediterranean Sea, and yet it's very constant. Trying to understand how the Nile River gets to be so, it does flood, but flooding nothing like China. And so they still wanted to have the flooding, but then they said, oh, we want to have a dam. We want to get electric power from the Nile, right?
Yes.
So they built a dam called the Aswan High Dam, and it created what? A big lake behind the dam. And so now there's a huge lake in Egypt, and then it extends into Sudan, and I think into other places too, that covered stuff up. So managing water on a large scale has been a problem for mankind throughout history, and so it's a really interesting thing, I think, to do that. So I could see where that would be kind of fun. All right.
I know.
And so, so you're just learning all kinds of interesting stuff. and I don't want this interview to go on. We're going to try to keep the interviews a little bit shorter this time. So it sounds to me like life in Alan world is really good right now.
Yeah, pretty much. For the grace of God.
Okie doke. Okay. So we said hello to Papa and Mama. You want to say hello to Papa Gary and all the rest of the fans of Alan in America?
Oh yeah. Okay, I have quite a number of friends.
Okay.
But I won't have to mention, except a few in particular.
Oh, this is as they say, the microphone is yours, my dear. Say anything you want.
Okay, I'm so grateful. I call Papa Gary the greatest among all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite, but it best defines him because he has laid the foundation for me. He has nurtured me. He has been the mentor. He has been the preacher. He has been everything. I remember the first time he walked up to me and he told me how much he loved me. And then I was thinking, I think no one ever would ever like me because when I was growing up, I went through, I can't say rejection, but people didn't seem to love my ideology because I always had a different ideology from what people seem to have. And then people always called me that I was always on a negative side. Much as they never wanted to accept my ideology because they thought, anyway, maybe I had a different view of life.
Okay.
And then so at some point I just chose to get out of people, and I usually grew up knowing that people would never have to like my idea, people would never have to come to my side. But the day he walked up to me and told me how much he loved me, and then he told me how valued I was, and then he was trying to tell me how beautiful I was. And then he had so much in me, and he told me I was brave, I was courageous, and it was just so different for me. So I just smiled and walked away because it just looked like he was lying. But then right now I still see it. I see that in myself. And I feel encouraged every time I look at him, every time I see him. And so many words have been coming out of his mouth that has been an encouragement to me till now. He has really nurtured me to our lady I am. And then there's so many people to be thankful for. Most importantly, mom and dad. They're the best and wonderful creatures of the world that I've ever seen or met or even known. Sometimes I sit down and I tell Dad that you're everything in the world. You're a professor, you're a dad, you're a doctor, you're everything. I mean, it's someone who will really bring out, I think sometimes I feel he brings out to life that is embedded in me. Sometimes I look at myself and all I can think of myself is I will never measure up. I can't do this. And then every time I tell him I've failed myself here and there, I've done this, I've not done this, I've failed to get to this point where I wanted. All he tells me, you're there, you're already there. And he always encourages me, and he's trying his best, not even trying, he has done his best to make sure that I am who I am. I get to the point where I can see my love as a successful person. And Mom too is a very genius lady. I call her a wonder lady because she's so wonderful. She's a person who is so courageous. She does much every other time, and she makes sure that everything is done perfectly. And sometimes I look at her as an inspiration. She's just a perfect figure in my life. And then I can't thank them enough. I can't thank everyone, all the friends in America. I mean, at school we have a program called USP Students. So we have so many American students come over at school for the 2 semesters over in winter, that is the same January semester, and then the September to December semester. So every time they come, they are so welcoming. So I've made so many friends. I've established relationships to wherever they are, and these people have mentored me, and they're really, I mean, sometimes it's really different to understand what they mean cross-culture. Sometimes it's difficult to merge into other people's cultures and try to deal with people who were raised up differently, have a different perspective of life, but it has been great. I mean, God has made it simpler for me to bond with these people, to get together, to engage with them, to love one another and to help one another, and that really helped me every time they come over. It's just a blessing to me, and for so many people who have been here. Today I was talking to Mom about Papa Yokana. He was one of the, I think he was on the second trip, people who came to Uganda. So when he came, he was so interesting. At first he came first with Papa Gary, then he came back the second with his wife. And he was so amazing. So he phoned me, I think we were sitting on the veranda of the house. And then he was trying to talk to everyone, asking them who they wanted to be. And I was such a little girl, I think I was in my first day in high school. I looked so young and naive. And then when he walked up to me and told me, what do you want to be? I was so excited. I told him I wanted to be an engineer. Much as so many people didn't believe in me. I'm sure 80% of the people I've lived with have actually believed that I could do something. But for the first time, besides Papa Gary and all that, the person who encouraged me and told me, you probably make a wonderful engineer. And I believe you will. Till now, every time I re-echo on his words, and I'm like, yes, he really believed in me and I can be a great engineer. And so many people that have come over for all the trips that we've hosted, so many people have been an encouragement to me. I mean, they have loved us so much to bring, and it's just so amazing. I mean, I'm so grateful. I really can't thank you enough. But all I can say, I am doing my best for the entire world to benefit. Because the Bible says that we should bear fruits and understand the fruits that I bear. It's not me to benefit from, but for the entire world to benefit. I'm praying so hard that God uses me as a vessel to reach out to people who are really in bad conditions, because one time I was one of them. I couldn't raise anything.
That is so dear.
Sometimes you could even go hungry when you don't have anything to eat. You could go almost naked when you had, not because you didn't have anything, but you could probably spare one cloth to put on when you get maybe outside home. But the point when you couldn't even have anything to put on, when all the clothes are torn, and you suddenly don't have any single coin to go and get a clothes. Food to eat was always, I mean, sometimes we really never had even the needs, besides the luxurious things, but even the needs were so hard to get. And every time I look at those kids, I just bless God. And I'm praying so hard that I can either expound on Olive Branch Ministries, or I can start up a project where I can help people, the needy, and most importantly, the little kids who need to go to school. Because school has changed my life. It has formed my world, and right now I can be proud of myself.
Okay. Wow.
I'm really so grateful for you. I am so grateful for Papa Scott. Last but not the least, Papa Scott and Mama Cassandra. They're so amazing anyway. I mean, I just can't thank them enough. Every time they have to carry so many things, because sometimes I talk to Papa Gary and they say, oh, Papa Scott can actually carry as much as he wants. Not because they have much, but because they're really so sacrificial. They want to sacrifice to make sure that everyone is having so much fun, to make sure that we are doing great. The Ulala have, and most importantly, they took one of our siblings. They took Kenneth, they took Phoebe, and they took dinner to South Africa for just a hangout, to go have fun. I mean, that was just a dream that I never thought I would ever have in life. I mean, it was far-fetched. Every time I asked Kenneth whether they were really going, because sometimes, at first when I heard about it, I asked him that, are you being serious, or it's just a crazy thought to think about? And he's like, okay, we see what God has in store for us. But the day they left, the day they landed in South Africa, and they had so much fun. They came with so many gifts. They had a great time, and I'm sure this is a life-changing for them. Even for some of us who didn't go, it's just a
that's the hope. We didn't want to make a situation where people are jealous, but we see in OBM or Joseph Home that people are happy for other people when something special happens.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
if you get the good fortune to go to America, everybody's going to be rooting for you. Everybody's going to be so happy. They're not going to say, oh, why me? Why Alan, but not me? They're not going to do that. They're going to say, that's one of our team.
Because we're the same. We believe if I've gotten a blessing, I can still share everyone's blessings.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm so grateful for you, and I am so blessed by you.
Well, we love you, dear.
I love you so much. I love you so much, Mom.
Okay.
And I.
Okay. So it's New Year's Day, so we can
Yes,
wave goodbye.
I'm sorry, I had so much to say today. I was singing and laughing and screaming, so
Okay.
I lost my voice, but
Okay.
I love you so much.
Okay.
I've loved you all.
Okie doke. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.